The Baby Machine by Rene Morris. It was a beautiful machine. Everyone said it was, and there was never any doubt as to its capabilities, for was it not the most advanced machine of its kind and the most expensive? But then Melinda had always expected the best, and married as she was to an electronics engineer and a leading figure in the field, there had never been any doubt that she would own one when the baby came along. Now as she moved, smiling, among her guests, she felt completely at ease. She felt free, so free that her heart sang inside, and her conversation positively sparkled. Once again she was the centre of attraction, and as she sipped her wine, she knew that all eyes were upon her, and her happiness was complete. Melinda loved her baby almost as much as herself, but her maternal instinct was mainly one of pride, and she cared very little to be inconvenienced by the more wearisome side of motherhood. But the machine had relieved her of all that was distasteful to her, and now she was free again to enjoy herself. "Melinda, darling," Anne said urgently, "I've just come past the nursery and little Paul is crying. Do you think we should go up? He sounded most upset." "No, darling," Melinda said confidently. "The machine is there and we would only be in the way." "But please," Anne said wistfully, "couldn't we all just take a teeny-weeny peek just to see that everything's all right?" Melinda sighed. "Oh, very well. But there's really no need. Little Paul is quite all right, you know." Anne led the way to where the white staircase spilled onto the blue and gold hall, and together they climbed the richly carpeted stairs and along the white balcony above, adorned so beautifully with its delicately carved corbels. There was no sound as Melinda quietly opened the nursery door, only the tinkle of Melinda's bracelet as it slid down her soft white arm and barely touched the door handle. "Can we go in?" Anne whispered. "Just for a moment." Melinda sighed again and nodded. They tiptoed over to the cot, so pretty with its white lace folds fallen to the floor and the little blue ribbons that caught it up around the hem. Anne leaned carefully over the sleeping child, pulling back the coverlet gently that she might see him better. "Isn't he a little darling? See how he lies with one little hand beneath his head. Oh, Melinda," she breathed pitifully, "how could you ever trust him to a machine?" "It isn't just any machine, you know," Melinda said indignantly. "It's capable of the most sensitive movements. Peter helped in the making of it. It even has a danger system to stop anyone from taking the child from the room. I only turn it on when we go out for the evening. It really is the last word in baby care. Look, I'll show you just how clever it is." Melinda pulled back the covers until the child's other hand could be seen, then stepped back, motioning Anne to do the same. In the corner behind them, the pale green eye came suddenly to life. The machine moved silently towards them across the carpet, its thick rubbery arms outstretched and the round glassy head bent towards the cot. It stopped, its pincer-like hand smoothing back the covers and neatly turning in the edges where the child had started to chew on them. The child stirred, his little hand pushing upward, then falling limply back on the pillow. The green eye flickered, and the rubber arm took the tiny hand and gently pulled it down snugly beneath the covers, turning in the edges as before. Then, seeing that all was well, backed away into the corner from whence it had so noiselessly come. "It's wonderful," Anne breathed. "I've never seen anything like it." "Well, I did tell you, darling, didn't I? I must admit, though, at first I was a tiny bit afraid that Martha, that's what we call it, might drop him or something, but I soon found out that there was no need for anxiety. There isn't a thing that Martha can't do. Peter's tried all kinds of tests on her, and he adds to her knowledge all the time." "You are a lucky one, Melinda," Anne sighed. "You have a lovely home, a wonderful husband, and the sweetest baby I've ever seen. Why do you treat him so?" "Peter's happy enough. He is older than I am, darling. He doesn't like parties and things, and I do. He doesn't mind my going out and about. I like to enjoy life, and he likes to see me happy." "Do you still see Clive, or did you give him up as you said you would?" Anne asked quietly. "Of course I didn't give him up, darling. Whatever made you think that I could? After all, he loves me. It wouldn't be very kind to him, would it? I'm not a robot, you know. Not like that monster over there. Really, Anne, I'm a good wife to Peter. Good for his business. I entertain for him, don't I? I run his home perfectly. What more can I do? I'm sorry, Melinda, Anne sighed. I shouldn't have asked you. It's just that I thought that things were different now that you had the baby to think about. A woman settles down when there's a baby. I also have Martha, Melinda retorted coldly. We had one of the earlier models. Do you remember it, Melinda? Anne said soothingly. It wasn't much of a baby nurse at all, was it? It sounded alarms mostly, but it couldn't cope by itself. In a way, I was glad. I liked doing everything for Wendy. She was so small and forever wet or hungry. We'd better go down, darling. People will wonder where on earth we've got to, and I hate missing coffee. Martha's green eye flickered into life as the door closed upon them. Down below she could hear the sound of laughter, and then the child turning in the white lace cot. He was dreaming of his mother, and Martha's fine tuner beam picked up the dream and stored it away with so many other dreams and thoughts that had needed her attention. She moved silently towards the cot, the long arms reaching out for the child. As gently she gathered him close to her soft rubber breast, rocking him deeper and deeper into a dreamless sleep. Melinda stretched luxuriously in the ivory satin bed, then listened for the usual plaintive wail from the nursery. Little Paul started to cry, then stopped. Melinda smiled, then turned over happily, knowing that Martha had everything under control. It really was a blessing, that wonderful machine. Reaching under her pillow, she drew out the letter and opened it. It was from Clive, and it asked that she should meet him tonight at the Blue Grill. Melinda heard Peter's heavy step outside the door, and she quickly pushed the letter back under the pillow, out of sight. He looked tired as he entered, and she guessed that he had worked well into the night, for he seemed distant to her lately, as if his mind was deeply solving some new mystery. "Darling," he said without his usual smile, "see to my tie for me, will you? I've tried, but I seem to be all fingers and thumbs today." "Is that all you've woken me for?" Melinda pouted. "Now who else could tie it for me the way you do?" "There's Martha," Melinda said in a tired voice. "But Martha's busy with the baby at this time of the morning, and I didn't buy her to do jobs for me. It was for the baby's sake that I let you have her." "So you don't think I'm capable of looking after my own child then?" Melinda said hotly. "I didn't think you felt like that about it. If you like, you can get rid of the blasted thing and I'll cope by myself." "Well, I didn't mean it like that, Melinda. But while we're on the subject, don't you think you should spend more time with Paul? I don't mind you enjoying yourself, but the child hardly knows you. You don't see him from one day to the next." "Don't be so ridiculous. He's my child. Of course he knows me. Every child knows his mother." Peter lifted his hand. "All I am saying is that he should be given more opportunity to know you better. He knows Martha better than he knows you, and you must agree that this isn't right. I tell you what we'll do, darling. We'll both spend an hour or so with him every night. I've been worried about the boy. He doesn't seem to want to learn to talk. You do want him to develop properly, don't you?" "Yes, of course I do." "Then I'll see you both tonight." "I can't, Peter, not tonight." "Why not?" "I'm sorry, darling, but I have to go out." "Well, you can damn well put it off. I don't ask much of you, God knows. Who is it this time?" "I'm going over to Anne's. I can't let her down." "No, but you'd damn well let me down, wouldn't you?" "There's the telephone. Ring her. Tell her your husband has booked an appointment with you. It looks like it's come to that. Anyone except me." "What do you mean, Peter, anyone except you?" He went quickly over to the dressing table and tore open the top middle drawer. When he turned to face her, he held up a small spool of tape, the kind that she had seen him feed into the baby machine. "You didn't think I knew, did you, Melinda? And I wouldn't have found out if I hadn't listened to this tape." "What tape?" "The one I fed into Martha to see if her son has learned to say anything. And he hasn't, has he? But my God, Melinda, you had plenty to say, didn't you? Yes, it's all on here, your conversation with Anne. I am disgusted with you, and tired of being laughed at. You'll phone him now and tell him it's all off, or you will leave my house." Melinda could not speak. So deep was her fury that there were no words. She reached for her cigarettes, while Peter stood beside her, his face pale but determined. "The phone, Melinda." "I will not be treated like a child. Be rational, Peter." "Rational? You ask me to be rational. Haven't I given you everything? You will phone now or be out of this house before I come home this evening. That's all I have to say to you." "All right," Melinda screamed. "I'll go. See how you get on without me to play hostess for you. I'll be glad to go." Peter walked slowly to the door, half hoping that there was still something he could say to her to make her stay, but his temper had robbed him of words, and his world had suddenly crashed about him, and there was nothing. Nothing except the baby. He stood in the doorway. He looked beaten, and Melinda waited for him to beg her to stay. "You will not take my son with you. This is his home, and he will stay here." "Paul goes where I go," Melinda shouted. "I am his mother. He cannot be without his mother. He needs me." "Paul has Martha." "He doesn't need you. He stays. I have seen to it that he stays. I do not advise you to try to take him from this house. Will you telephone Clive and put an end to all this? A man can only take so much." Melinda reached for her shoe and flung it at the door. It cracked against the panelling and fell to the floor. The door closed quietly behind Peter, and then she heard his measured step along the hallway, and then downstairs. The click of the front door. She reached for the telephone and dialed frantically, her hands trembling with fury. "Hello, darling. Is that you, Clive? Oh, darling, he's found out. Yes. That's right. It was that blasted machine." "Yes." "He taped a conversation between Anne and I." "No, darling. I know you wouldn't do a thing like that on purpose. It was to hear the baby." "Yes. Darling, the baby. Will you come over for me?" "Thank you, darling." "Yes." "In 15 minutes. "Yes, I love you too." Melinda dressed quickly. Throwing a few clothes into a suitcase, she ran down the stairs, still trembling. She pulled on her coat, then hurriedly pulled it off again, and running back up the stairs, she flung open the door to her closet and took out the expensive fur that Peter had bought her for being a good girl, and pulled it on. In the corner stood the baby's night bag. She snatched it up and ran to the nursery. Flinging open the door, she rushed inside and quickly gathered up the baby's clothes and his immediate requirements, and flung them into the bag. Martha stood in the corner, and as the baby started to cry, her pale green eyes flickered into life. Melinda ran past her and down the stairs, putting the night bag along with the other. Martha heard the hurrying footsteps and was aware that something was wrong, felt that the child was in some kind of danger. She heard the footsteps hurrying back up the stairs and moved halfway across the room towards the child, her arms outstretched protectively. The child stood wide-eyed in its cot, then started to cry again as Melinda ran back into the room. Melinda stopped. Peter's words came back to her. There was a small button at the base of Martha's neck. It would, once pressed, immobilise her completely. Martha stood quite still, trying to analyse the strange pattern of signals that whirled round and round inside her brain. She felt confused, uncertain as to what action she would be called upon to make. Melinda smiled at the machine, then walked casually over to the child. Quickly she picked him up in her arms and carried him over to Martha, and placing him in the soft rubbery arms, she waited for Martha to take the child back to his cot, or set him down on the floor. As she would just bend over, she could reach the button at the back of Martha's neck. Martha held the child, her head turning this way and that, until she finally decided to return the child to its cot. She pulled back the covers and set the child down. Melinda reached for the button and pressed it hard. Martha straightened up, and in a flash, Melinda had the child in her arms and was running to the door. Something grasped her shoulder with a grip of iron. She let go the child and it fell with a scream onto the soft carpet. Melinda fought desperately to free herself, but the vice-like grip drew her slowly back into the room, nearer and nearer to Martha's soft rubber breast. She couldn't breathe. She was suffocating. There was no air. She tried to scream, but the soft rubber filled her nose and mouth. Everything was black, black as death as the rubber closed about her. Something inside Martha clicked, and slowly she released the tension, and the rag-like thing she was holding fell to the floor. Martha's eyes saw the child tumbling towards her, his little arms reaching up for her. Lovingly, and with great gentleness, Martha bent down and gathered him close. Mama, Mama. Martha heard the small utterance and felt strangely moved.